All right, our first matchup here in the ESL Korea Cup Weekly is going to be between the Red Tower on the top right-hand side. This is SpeCial taking on the Blue Protoss on the bottom left-hand side. Stats. Semi-finals of the ESL Open Cup Korea 18, which happened just a few days ago. This is going to be one of those casts where I'm going to say hello to my friends on YouTube because I think we might be uploading this one to YouTube. I've heard great things about these games. So we're doing this as a bit of a... I'm live streaming. It's Wednesday, which is kind of my weird day where GSL is on, and then I've got a couple hours before the Red Bull event we usually cast. So I'm doing this kind of like, you know, I'm putting the stream on to cast these rather than just cast them on my own. But yeah, I'm really intending to upload a couple of these to YouTube as well. So hello, my YouTube friends. How you doing? Thanks so much for all the support, of course. And of course, if you do enjoy the video, don't forget to like it. Helps, you know, beat the YouTube algorithm. If we can beat the YouTube algorithm, we're going to have more StarCraft. If we can't beat it, well, we'll probably still have more StarCraft, but less people will watch it, which is a bad thing, right? So help us beat the algorithm. And of course, if you want to support further, consider subscribing to the channel as well. You know it, guys. Yes, that YouTube sub. You know what I'm going to say? We're so close to 20,000. We are. 1,000 to go. Let's do it. So, game gets started, and we're going to be seeing a little bit of a... Wow, SCV even takes a moment to hit the barracks as we get this underway in these early stages. SpeCial and stats. A matchup which I feel like is a sort of a matchup where you're like, well, that doesn't happen very often, and yet I kind of feel like it happens more than you'd imagine it does, in a way. Because... I feel like they play a lot when it comes to like GSLs, in IEMs. In fact, they've already played twice this year. Once in a GSL, once in an IEM. And then they played last year in IEM. Okay, well, they don't play too much. But they do play like a fair amount. Like, I think they've played a lot of high-profile matches against each other, right? So the few tournaments they do play that have, you know, that both the players are allowed to participate in, they kind of cross over, right? So it is this kind of weird setup of this is not something which necessarily, or this is not a matchup you see every day, but it's still very cool. And I think very cool just to see Stats playing in one of these ESL Open Cups as well, because this is his first time participating. So I think that's really, really awesome. Which is pretty, so yeah, that's pretty sick, right? Just these ESL Open Cup Korea events, the Korean events don't really get a lot of signups. So seeing someone like Stats signing up really sort of says like, oh yeah, you know, like, you know, kind of, it just ups the ante a little bit, I suppose. So yeah, really cool. As you do see SpeCial, he proxies that barracks on the bottom side, which is what I've been showing you on the screen while I'm ranting on about these two and their history. A little bit intrigued. I mean, you see Ghost Academy dropping down. This is kind of, in a way, what I thought this was going to be. A Rax proxied across the map into a Ghost Academy. And he's going to fly the racks into the main base and start up a tech lab. It sounds crazy that I feel like it's one of those noises where you're like, oh yeah, Wardy, of course you're going to say that. But I actually used to love ghost rushing like this. I even ghost rushed, I think, Fear Dragon or someone in the Casters Invitational one time like this. It was a bit different back then. You actually just proxied the first racks. But nowadays, the racks proxy in the way that Protoss aggression works, I actually think you need this reactor, right? So the ghost rush hits later, but it looks very normal for the Protoss because this is often expansion, so you're not like one base or all in it all. And it was the only thing that really made sense to proxy a tech, like, you know, a second racks across the map so late. So yeah, a ghost gonna be coming out and going in toward the main base. And the thing about ghosts, guys, this is what's crazy. Ghosts are A, very good against probes. B, they can EMP probes and then they one-shot them. So that might be the choice here from SpeCial. He might save the energy to actually snipe. Well, there's no adept here. No, he's just going to EMP the probes. He's just going to one-shot them. What a play. As he comes straight in, he's going to get 3 probes, make that 4. There's the one on the gas, which makes it 5. And SpeCial's going to get a lot of damage. And he's also got a push coming through the center of the map as well. So 7 kills so far. And look at the pushing through the middle. 2 Hellions, Marines, and SCVs all pulling across the map here from SpeCial. Coming into the front, going to go for this pylon. I mean, if you empower this pylon, you empower a gateway, you empower the robo. And Stats doesn't really have any units here. SCVs and Marines are going to slip by. And this should be, well, he's wasting some time hitting this Nexus. He should be down on the mineral line. As probes get pulled, the second ghost cleaned out. But this is so much damage on the natural. Look at the worker lead that SpeCial's going to take from this. 23, 24 workers killed. madness, absolute madness, as Marines and Hellions will continue up this ramp. A couple of Stalkers blinking back up there. As Blink is done, that's pretty much all that is done. SpeCial's actually just going to leave. Now, he did pull some SCVs with this, but I actually think you can just send those SCVs back home. He does see the third base, so Stats is on 3 bases. As he starts up another Ghost, I mean, this one shouldn't be able to finish, right? Because, well, the Stalkers are just going to kill the barracks before then. But he actually comes back in the natural because the Stalkers are in the main base. He's going to be able to chase down a Stalker. He forces a cancel on the pylon again, keeping Stats on essentially 1 gateway of production. I mean, he's still rallying units across the map. I kind of thought these SCVs should maybe go home, but apparently not, and I think he's right to make that call. Now you have to be very quick again onto those Stalkers, though. You want to force them to blink back right away. You want to try and get as much done as possible. Can these Marines take down the Nexus? I don't think they can if they just right-click target it. I think the Stalkers win out before then, which is why he keeps dancing back toward the Stalkers to try and force them back up the ramp. You can see the Stalkers having some trouble getting down the ramp as well. Marines are going to get blinked onto now. Not enough of them left. He'll get one more probe. These SCVs dying are just the SCVs that were brought across the map with this attack. And the attack is held, as SpeCial, he finds actually 1 more probe, 2 more probes over on the 3rd base with that Hellion. The attack is held. Stats comes out 15 workers behind, which is about 25 workers away from where he'd want to be given the Terran economy. Is there a positive from this? Well, there's no starport just yet from SpeCial, so that's a positive. Yeah, I mean, that's great. Other than that, I mean, I guess the 2nd and 3rd racks are later, so you're not going to be seeing an earlier kind of stim pack or anything here from Stats' point of view. But of course, Stats is just stuck on Blink Stalkers as well. Yeah, he's got a Robo, but what else does he really have as he Chrono Boosts out probes? The problem is you might be able to get it to some kind of tech, but by then, SpeCial's going to be hitting you in the face with like a big Bioforce, Medivacs included, and it's going to get really aggressive really quickly. So yeah, I'm not too sure about this one. As you see, the Stalkers will find the Ghost Academy and clean that out. I mean, SpeCial's already got 2 tanks, making a 3rd. He will go into... Oh, he's going to go for another Ghost. Interesting. Maybe he just goes for like a tank push. Maybe he doesn't even bother with Medivacs. Maybe he doesn't even bother with... I wonder if it's worth bothering with the stim pack. He's going to build 2 more Ghosts. I mean, it feels like then you can't afford stim pack, right? Okay, well, SpeCial... I mean, to me, that says SpeCial's going for another push. And the 2 extra racks will just back up that idea that this is going to be a 5 rack all-in. He is going to get stim, which I think makes sense. At the end of the day, stim pack is still a huge upgrade, and you're still going to be playing with a lot of units here. If you're going to go for stim, it means you're not going to push for a little while, but when you're building these racks, you're not going to push right away anyways, because then you haven't gained the benefit from the 4th and 5th barracks just yet. So, Stats building back in. I mean, up to 50 probes now, but equal workers against the Terran is not good for a Protoss player. He needs more than this. As he gets charge on the way, that's an upgrade he needs. He'll also start the Forge. Obviously, I think +1 armor or so along the way in this would help massively. The SpeCial does now have the starport up, so first Medivac already on the way out. The second one can follow very soon. Just going to be seeing the combat shield starting on the other tech lab, and Siege Tank is building. So just continuing the Siege Tank count. I mean, up to 4 already. It's going to be a very scary push. When you consider the fact there's EMPs involved as well, it's a very scary push, right? Templar Archive is building already from Stats in the main base. You do see this Medivac trying to make its way around, but this Observer Sword lifting or loading, it seems, because Stats is really watching for that, or he just has very good game sense of maybe perhaps there's a drop coming my way and I need to cover that right side. But I imagine the Observer saw that. Yeah, the only issue that SpeCial might have is actually getting across the map. With these Stalkers in the front, he's going to lose a few Marines in the process. Stimpack will help with that, because then you can actually hit the Stalkers more often. If you lose like a Ghost or so, then you're losing a lot of your, power of your push across the map. So I'm sure he'd really like to be very careful here as the Stalkers, you can see their position. Stats is going to try and get to Storm. Thing is, even if you get to Storm here, I think you're in that very weird spot, right, where there's already Ghosts up. He built the 2 Ghosts, and so there's EMPs, and if there's only like 3 or 4 High Templar, well, those EMPs are going to be, invaluable. And then, of course, if you even hit 1 EMP on, like, a couple Templar, I think you're in a great spot already. Stats trying to get aggressive here with the Zealots as well. SpeCial has the army to fight this. He's bringing the SCVs. They are actually going over the left side. I mean, he might actually get an SCV surround on this. Okay, the Zealots pull away. So now SpeCial is just going to show the SCVs straight up. I mean, Stat's doing a good job buying time, right? I mean, this army came down the right side instead of through the middle of the map. So it's taken a little while. He's now going to go and intercept a medevac that just wasn't there. Oh, he's going to boost it away. It's still going to get caught. A few extra Marines coming along, and, well, this sentry out the front is just not going to do anything. No force field. Yeah, I mean, Stats is going to base trade, but if you're base trading the Terran who has already pulled the SCVs, so it's not like the Terran is too worried about continuing production or anything. He's already pretty all in across the map. Yeah, he's keeping a bit of mining going. I just feel like it's way more important to have the units back at home. The first storm was pretty good on these Marines, and then the second storm hits the SCVs. That's massive because now you don't waste any DPS on the SCVs with the Zealots or anything. Is that enough, though? Obviously, eventually these Stalkers and Zealots will have to recall home. Well, they're not going to recall to the natural. I guess they'd recall to the third. Unfortunately, the High Templar all picked off, and none of them able to become an Archon. The Special is actually down on supply, but still up in army. He's just down on the work account, which makes sense. His base has already been taken down. The storm on the SCVs was massive. Ghost here gets taken down. A second Ghost gets lifted and saved by the medevac. Is wanting to go for the High Templar. Another storm. Is Stats holding? There, I say it. Stats going to hide a Nexus in the top left-hand side. Still has these units over here. I mean, Stats could recall into the main base, and the storm will do well to hold the ramp. But of course, the siege tanks are still a major problem. There's not a lot of Marines here, and that first storm is good, especially because the medevacs are very low on energy, and also not in the right position to heal the Marines on the left side as well. Stats. Now morphing an Archon in. There's an Archon actually. Oh, it's right there. It's right under my face, right under my nose. There's the recall, so it's going to be Stats committing to this now as he recalls in. He's got Storm still available. The first Storm actually misses a little bit. He blinks in for the siege tanks. The Zealot's going to run on top. The High Templar doesn't have anything left. The Archon isn't going to do much on its own. Special is just going to have enough army supply, but Stats really makes a good effort of this, trying to make it work. Just enough Marines surviving in the end. There's only one SCV left on the map from Special. Stats still has 1,000 minerals, but where do you warp in Zealots? And of course, if it's just Zealots as well, it's very, very tough. I mean, he still has the Forge. He could arguably make cannons in the top left and maybe build back up over here, which isn't a bad idea. But Special has already seen the probes run into the top left, so it's a dead giveaway as to where this base is. And there's still a lot of these probes still in the corner here. Does he have I mean, he has recall on cooldown. Yeah, I mean, Special sees this. He lifts up against that storm. Preserves the Marines. Really needs to keep everything alive possible, just in case. Unloading on the high ground and getting a few shots off. I think you just go to the top left. He's not going to check this corner for these gates, which means that Stats... Well... I'm just trying to see if there's a way. He finds this probe in the corner. Obviously knows that these gates are powered. Stats mining off of, well, 6 workers, because the rest of them are still dead elsewhere. They're actually moving across the map now. They're going to go for the Marine. They're going to go save this gateway probes. They're going to get that as here we go. Fight on the top left. This High Templar doesn't want to... I mean, this High Templar should wait for the other High Templar to storm and then pull back and make an Archon. I'm not sure if it really would have made a difference. You have the tanks here as Special to slowly take down the cannons. And Stats makes this a way closer game than you'd ever imagine. The first couple storms on the few Marines that are just charging in all on their own, and then the SCVs all die in a storm. And that's where it got a little bit scary, but Special is able to keep the lead. He is able to close it out, and Special will take game number 1 of this best of 3 here in the ESL Open Cup Korea semi-finals. Second game will be on Eternal Empire in the bottom left-hand side. Our red Terran. This is Special, and he has taken a lead, up 1-0 in the best of 3 against Stats. Our blue Protoss on the top right-hand side. What a way to start this semi-final matchup. The Ghost Rush. Just all of it, really, right? Like, what a fantastic way to start off. Really entertaining opening map. And now, yeah, just going to be seeing the SCV making its way to the upper right. So Special going to go and proxy our racks, and he will proxy in the natural. The timing is not good enough. The probe saw the SCV if Stats was paying attention. Let's see if he was. He might just... There's a world in which he acts as though he didn't, and then... But do you not just pull a probe just to get the cancel? Or do you really just, you know, let this build up and then you have the Reaper or have the Zealot out? But at that point, the thing is, like, knowing about it and the Reaper getting up is still, like there's not anything you can do about it at that stage, right? Knowing about it now, you can actually stop this Rax and then just not deal with it at all. Stats will drop the Cybernetics core before any form of Nexus, so we'll be completing this wall off. And then coming down to the low ground to build his Nexus. I don't think Stats saw the SCV. He definitely did, because we saw in his vision, he saw the edge of it. He comes over the side now, so now he actually sees the Rax just as it finishes. He will still drop the Nexus before he goes to the Zealot. He knows it's just one Rax, so you can generally do this, Nexus then Zealot. If this is a 2 Rax, you generally want to go Zealot before the Nexus, because otherwise a bunker gets up, Marines get in, and if the bunker gets up in that scenario, you're in a lot of trouble. With the single Reaper, it's not as much of an issue. You still want the Zealot, so the Reaper has to worry about it, and at the very least kite away from the Zealot as he tries to kill probes. But it just forces a lot more attention on the Terran player than if you just try and, you know, skip the Zealot. Then the Reaper just has free reign over the mineral line. He's just sat there shooting, he doesn't miss any shots. So yeah, the Zealot right now will try and play that dance. You can always see, imagine there's no Zealot, right? This Reaper's already killed a probe. And in the end here, probe micro continues, and you just can't, you don't have freedom of where you can chase those probes down because of the Zealot zoning. Beautifully done so far by Stats, and he will hold this off for the moment as the Stalker pops out, and a good shot onto the Reaper on the low ground. We have a tech lab building on the factory. As you see the command center on the natural expansion as well. The barracks are SpeCial. Is pulling back down the bottom left. A Stalker still chrono boosting, and that's going to be 2 Stalkers here already. Of course, this is a lot of chrono boost on the gateway, and so, you know, there's no tech structure down. It's a 3rd Stalker, so it's actually a lot of units in the very early stages here from Stats. Really pumping out units in these early in this early game as the Reaper comes to clean out this scouting probe. Factory already building that Cyclone, and SpeCial just adding 2 more barracks behind this as well. So we'll go into a 3-rack setup off the factory and the Cyclone to keep him fairly safe. The Cyclone keeps you very safe against a Stargate, and it also keeps you very safe in a. It also keeps you very safe if you if you kind of have any aggression on the front, right? Because you can just lock on and pull back, and yes, you have to micro it correctly, but you're under the assumption that SpeCial is able to micro a Cyclone correctly, right? Cyclone at the front. We do see the Reaper is moving into the center here, and we'll look to take the Watchtower. Blink, Chrono boosting out of the Twilight Council, meaning that it's on the way. But of course, pretty late. I mean, this is 4 minutes, and it's only just really started up. So it's going to be a little while, just until that Blink is ready. That means that Stats doesn't get as much map control as early as he might like, so again, this all comes back to how many Stalkers he ended up building, and he hasn't really done anything with that. It kind of felt like he was building a good amount of Stalkers to either go across the map, or he was very afraid of the Cyclone coming to him. But neither of those things happened, so now these Stalkers are just like sat around like, well, what were we here for again? So yeah, a little bit off from the norm. This is going to be combat shields, which means that this is going to be a Marine tank push. Starport setup as well, but with Marine tank, I imagine you're not going to go for a medevac. Maybe you just go for like a Liberator, and then you can multi-prong this, or maybe you just don't go for anything. You start up a Cyclone. I think you misclicked. I think the Cyclone and the Liberator share a hotkey. Depends on how you re-hotkey them, because they're usually, I think they're typically bound to N, right? So if you re-hotkey them, I rebind my Cyclone and my Liberator to like the same hotkey on the factory / Starport, right? So I rebind to G. So yeah, I think one of those, I think he was meant to build a Liberator. And like I said, you don't really go for a medevac here because A, the Liberator will help a lot in zoning. B, the Liberator can create a much better multi-prong harassment while still pushing up the front with all your power. And that maybe allows you to get into position a lot better. Versus what does the medevac really do here? Like, it's not really about the Marines healing. The Marines aren't going to be stimming either. It's really just about having one big push at the front right from the get-go. So yeah, Liberator makes a lot of sense and does start to fly up the left side, and Tank Siege at the moment going to intercept a few Stalkers that are making their way to the natural, but they get away without dying. Obviously, from stats, it's important to keep these alive because he would love to see this push coming out. He will see the combat shield on the Marines, so immediately is very aware of what's going on here. Loses a Stalker though. Obviously, you're meant to be able to keep these Stalkers up so they can deal some damage. You know, they can turn around on this high ground, get some shots on the Cyclone before it comes up, and then blink away again. Wow, that blink away is at the last moment. He does turn to try and get some damage on the Cyclone. Another Stalker just wandering into the center, though. And Stats just bleeding off units at the moment. That isn't pretty. Now, he is well on the way to charge, and charge is going to be one of the big things here to really defend an attack like this. A lot of gates on the way, too. If Stats can get to the charge, if he can get to enough gateways, it's going to work well. There's our Liberator showing up and already picking up 5 workers in the main. So that will take some attention away. Stalkers intercept the medevac that was made as a follow-up to this. Good force field will force SpeCial to kill the rocks, and if SpeCial is killing the rocks, he's not marching into your base and killing probes. The Stalker's warping in, but this entire time the main is not mining. And now gets up this high ground. Sentries didn't force field, so Stats kind of lets them up here. There go the bunkers. The Stalkers will want to blink in on the tanks, and then the Zealots charge in at the same time. Preferably have that happen before the bunkers, but at the moment he's intercepting reinforcements, which in fairness, working out. Gets a tank, gets some Marines. Can he still get back here before the bunkers, or does he have to fight this with bunkers up? It feels like he has to fight this with the bunkers finished. No, the bunkers stopped. Did he stop the bunkers to start building new ones? The Zealots are going to go charging in. I mean, this is just going to be a cleanup. The Zealots charge in, the Stalkers show up, and SpeCial's actually just going to GG out from it. Hey, I just want to go back a moment and see what happens with these bunkers. Does Stats, like, pick off the SCVs, or what exactly happened? Just because we were watching the Stalkers, obviously, intercepting. What do these SCVs do? Because these bunkers finishing changes the game. Building, building, building. He loses the SCV build in this bunker, so he does pull them off to build different bunkers. I feel like that's a mistake, because this bunker's, what, 11 seconds away? Does it finish? I don't think this one does. I mean, maybe it finishes during the fight, and then if you look at the fight, right, say the bunker finishes about now-ish, and you get a couple Marines in there. Does it make a difference? Probably not. So it probably doesn't make a difference. Maybe this bunker would have been great to wall off the Zealots from getting in, and that might have made the difference. So yeah. Either way, obviously, interception of the reinforcements is a big deal, and hitting when the charge is there. Reinforcements haven't arrived. You've just been warping in. Beautiful defense in the end from Stats, and is going to take that game number 2 to tie this up 1-1. Obviously, SpeCial is pretty all in with this, guys, as well. Just to... Because I know a couple of people be like, oh, why did you GG there? You know, you're actually up in workers. And yes, he's up in workers, but no third base. So the Protoss player is going to be on a third base. The Protoss player immediately gets map control as well. Because, well, what do you have to stop it? You have nothing. You have no reactor on the starport too. You only have combat shields, no stim. It's just a very committed attack. So the worker count is pretty much the only thing that's going well for SpeCial. And he very much so knows that. And worker count isn't even a good thing, because there's 3 bases that actually have a lot of energy to chrono boost. So the probe count is going to be 60 in like a minute. And SpeCial is still going to be on 46 SCVs because he's on 2 bases. He can't actually use more. So yeah, very interesting kind of end game. GG's. Stats going to take this one, like I said, and tie us up 1-1 in this semi-final. In the bottom right-hand side, our red Terran player. This is SpeCial. Up against the blue Protoss on the top left-hand side, we have got Stats. Yeah, really, again, not so often we get to cast Stats. He doesn't play in a lot of online events. He plays a Kung Fu Cup here and there. But also, not so often. I feel like we get a few chances to cast SpeCial, but I feel like every time I cast SpeCial, he never really has the best games. Maybe it's me bringing a bit of a curse onto him. Maybe he just doesn't perform as well in the events I cover. I mean, I'm generally covering like the Kung Fu Cup, which is obviously stacked as well. And by the time we're jumping into special games, he's playing like really good players. And then, not to say that SpeCial can't compete with them or anything like that, just, yeah. All right, yeah, just to kind of like I say, like, I just don't think about when I last casted SpeCial, for example, apart from like, I guess in some like qualifiers and stuff. Yeah, probably in some qualifiers. I'm just thinking about if I upload any SpeCial to YouTube very often, which I really don't, because YouTube I usually upload like the best games, which is what I'm thinking about, right? So there's something about SpeCial's games that are just like, they just don't make the cut for the YouTube uploads, right? So yeah, interesting. I think it's fair to say Ghost Rushing game number 1. This one is going to be on the YouTube, guys. The title is going to be beautiful. Stats versus SpeCial. Ghost Rush? Question mark? Exclamation mark? It's going to be amazing. Cybercore will be finishing in the main base in a few moments from Stats, as we do see the command center of SpeCial and the natural expansion. This probe just already scouting, sees the racks at home, and apparently that's all Stats wants to see. Doesn't even stick around to see the command center actually going down. There's an engineering bay block here, so Stats has had to build a zealot. At least he did see it to build a zealot, right? Worst case here is you don't actually see this, and then you don't have a zealot, and then you get an adept, and you're like, oh, I actually don't deal any damage to this. So this forces Stats into a bit of a slower expansion. He will put a Corona boost into the adept, and we'll just go adept into a stalker, so just basically adding on the zealot. But of course, while it doesn't cost SpeCial 125 minerals forever, it still is 125 mineral investment until he gets the cancel off to get 94 back. So it still slows a lot down, you know, a lot of SpeCials build down a little bit. We didn't see engineering bay blocks for a long time because I think Terrans really just said, well, they're not really worth it. And nowadays, I feel like it's kind of like a 50-50, like, you know, maybe it's okay-ish. It's a very minimal difference, but sometimes you can throw the Protoss off their game, off their build slightly. You know, if they don't get the Zealot up, then it can be very problematic. This can be very problematic. That's an Adept in the main base with nothing to fight it off. He's already looking for the first kill here. A couple Marines going over the left-hand side. We'll get one SCV to start. And then Adept will shade back over to the right side where it's going to go in. Find a second SCV. And these couple of Marines still just continue to chase this down. Adept is going to shade out of there. Well, I say out of there, into the corner. And she maybe could have got one more Marine. He's dealing with the Reaper back at home at the same time. Wants to make sure this Reaper doesn't get damaged. And it does not. It gets shut down by the Stalker. But he does get the Scout. Gets to see the Twilight Council. Gets to see one more gateway at least. And it will be a robo from there. So these two gates, just continued Stalker production basically off of two gateways rather than going into the 3 gates. As that starport of SpeCial is going to be finishing very soon. Factory is going to decide to go up, down, up, down. Just wants to bring it one set closer. Just keeps the factory and the starport right next to each other. That means that if something blinks in here, for example, you've got this wall. There's not a gap or anything. Not sure if it really makes a huge difference having that slight gap. But it also is just kind of base setup and base layout. And we don't really ever talk about this a lot because it's something that's just so natural for the pros to do. And you just see it all the time. But laying out your base properly as a Terran is very important to make sure you can move freely within it. You can go up and down the avenues you leave free and the gaps you leave. So your reinforcements can flow through easily. But also, so if you need to defend the main base from like a warp prism, you can get through yourself whilst also still having like narrow avenues to choke up zealots and so running through too. So that's why we typically see this kind of like lined setup of buildings. There's definitely a science to it, but I won't go on into it too much right now because I feel like it's one of those things I could talk about forever and isn't really that relevant because players just kind of do it. Just wanted to talk about it a bit for the factory relocating to make sure those two add-ons are right next to each other there. So it's going to be seeing the Forge on the way as we do see the Marines actually, did they just attack their own refinery? I feel like maybe the supply depot. No, that took some hot shots from the Adept. I don't know what they hit. Yeah, it felt like they were attacking something. Did the hallucination just come back in? I'm not too sure. Anyways, Stats has got the Stalkers coming forward, but there's a bunker at the front and there's only 4 Stalkers. And if they blink up into the main, if they had high ground vision, it's just very committed when you're on a very low Stalker count. One of the things is that Stats did find out that this was, you know, a tech lab setup already. So he's seen the timing of all of this and he kind of knows, well, this is not actually going to be a Widow Mine drop or anything. So he doesn't have to commit any units defensively against Widow Mines. So these Stalkers are able to come straight across the map and get in the front and really sit here. So the lack of that Widow Mine drop already allows Stats to sort of take some map control. Now the Raven's over here, but the Raven isn't something you really keep Stalkers back for because the Raven's probably just going to get auto turrets off anyway. So the better way to deal with it is just to pull the probes every time. And yes, it's annoying, but you don't really gain much more from keeping the Stalkers back. You gain way more from having the Stalkers here, utilizing their Blink Micro, and getting some damage done, picking up information on the main army leaving, and just keeping track on what the Terran is going for in the early few minutes. Comes in, gets an SCV, and we do see 2 shield batteries added from stats on the third. He does know this is still just 2 bases, and that this could get scary with the amount of bio there is, and obviously, you know, well, it's not necessarily a 2 base all in just yet, but it is a delayed third CC, right? And so stats knows, okay, well, my third was pretty early here. Maybe just need to make up for some of my unit count by making sure I can get those shield batteries up and running. There comes the Raven. Like I say, one Stalker, I mean, in this scenario, the Raven actually does get in, right? And maybe Stalkers could deflect it. It's when the Raven sits up here that maybe you don't do too much else. The Stalker's nearly getting it. Meanwhile, Widowmine drop will go to the natural, already making its way through, and it's going to go all the way through. Well, this is all taking attention of stats away from the third base, which is where the main push is coming in. As the medevac gets taken down, the Widowmines will just do what they can on burrows and will look for a reburrow. Stats does have a good army still here, so this hasn't distracted him too much. This Widowmine just one more probe. Meanwhile, though, the bio is already in this mineral line. 18 probes have died overall, so this has actually been a bit worse for stats than I thought it was. But this is a complete cleanup of the Terran army. Just this one medevac of units surviving. Wow, I mean, 18 probes is amazing, but you lose a lot of army in doing all of this. You can see the resource lost, about a 1,000 difference. And that is massive, to be down 1,000 resources already here for SpeCial. Even if stats is, and I mean, stats is, you know, stats is up, like, oh, sorry, stats is down on income, so SpeCial's making up for it. But it's also just very scary, because I feel like stats right now says, well, you know what, I just need to rebuild probes, but as I'm rebuilding probes, this is kind of prime time for me to really tech up, right? You can see the gases start, the Temple Archive starts, a very typical way to follow up from what was just kind of gateway heavy initially. One more probe kill from the Raven. So yeah, a little bit, you know, a little bit of a follow-up here from stats that just says, well, I can just tech up now, because surely after that he has no army to really punish me for doing so. So yeah, stats, I think, really taking that opportunity at the right time. And this orbital is just going to relocate slightly before morphing in. So it's coming through. A couple of SCVs being chased. The Ghost Academy is halfway along here on the natural expansion. So SpeCial making the right choice. I mean, he doesn't really know about the High Templar, but it is a very common follow-up. Even if it isn't High Templar, the Ghosts are really good in this scenario because it's gateway heavy. The Ghosts and EMPs just do so much to allow the bio to trade out with like Zealots and Stalkers and so on. A couple of SCVs go down as War Prism into the third base. A couple of Zealots picked off. The 2 Ghosts already building. And, oh, that's the... I don't even know where the Widowmine drop is. There it is on the third. There's a new Widowmine drop that shows up and gets 8 more probes. SpeCial really keeping the economy of stats low. I wasn't minding it too much before for stats, so I was like, well, you know, he traded a lot of army out. But this is now extra eco damage, where he's actually going to lose the Warp Prism. And, you know, he only cleaned out a Widowmine when losing those 8 probes. So now SpeCial is actually trading A lot better, and B, you can see resources lost is almost evened out. And he's keeping stats still in a lower work account. You know, now the work account is even, but then the Terran has triple mule, and so the income lead should be back in SpeCial's favor shortly. He doesn't have the mules just yet. He is pulling some SCVs against Zealots. Now Zealots come in again, so this is stats' play to obviously pull SpeCial back, and that will pull SpeCial straight back. And look at this, he was out on the map too. He wanted to be moving across here. So that's a real shame, as we do have those Zealots going down. I wonder if there's a... I wonder what the attempt of this is. The Zealot, did you see this Zealot? He just did a lap of the Widowmines before getting the final blow. Is that like the Zealot's form of a 360 no-scope? Like, he's just like, Widowmine, whoa, boom, I got you. He's just absolutely styling. Well, my goodness, we do have the army of SpeCial now making its way out across the upper left side. So, army coming through. Medevac just in the top, and SpeCial has an army which I think is very scary. Enhanced Shockwaves just finished. And I think with that Enhanced Shockwaves, you really do have opportunity. I love this as well, just a medevac in the main. It just brings stats attention away, even though there's not actually Widowmines in it anymore. Empty medevac trying to bait a little bit there. This Ghost goes down. EMP was alright-ish. The Zealots counterattacking once more, so they get 10 SCVs immediately. Nexus cancelled on the 4th base. No surprises about that, especially when Stats is doing damage like this. There's no reason to fight on your 4th base. And Stats has just got the first 2 Colossi up, and they are going to be a massive help against an army of Bio, which, well, has a couple of Vikings, but that's about it to deal with these Colossi. And of course, now you see Disruptors added on too. So Stats getting more and more tools to help him deal with this army. No reason to rush to defend in the 4th base with an army, which, especially if it moves forwards here, is not going to have a good time. He will set off these... He tries to set off the Widow Mines, but SpeCial retargets them a few times over, finally lets them go off. And in the end, the blink is still there from Stats, but a bit of a micro war between the two of them there. Well, not really much micro from Stats. Oh, the Prism goes down. I actually think they had 2 High Templar inside of it. That's pretty big, because remember, there was Storm here. These EMPs are good. Hits the High Templar. Disruptor shots both used at the same time, and now SpeCial gets a chance to go up the ramp. There was 1 High Templar still hiding in this, and the first Storm landed on the front row of Bio. The second Storm gets a lot of the Bio trying to chase forwards. The issue is the Zealots swapping on the left side, and these Immortals actually holding very well. Plus, SpeCial has not fought with any of his Widow Mines. While this looked like a lot of good things happened for SpeCial, these Widow Mines not being here to help against the Zealots, and also not having the final EMP and taking a couple of Storms, that really hurt him. And actually, the Protoss army didn't really take too many bad EMPs either. Like, it was mostly just on a couple of High Templar. The Immortals didn't get EMP'd, so they were very tanky in the front. The Zealots were never EMP'd, so they were very tanky coming in from the left side. And the Colossi survived a little while too because there wasn't that many Vikings, so it's a weird fight that looks initially really good for SpeCial. You can completely get why he went for it and why he really committed through with it. But when you look back on that fight, there's a lot of different things that actually were pretty good for Stats, and really, you know, that defensive position really played out for him. SpeCial relocates the main base to take a 4th location so he can keep on mining here. That may be one of the reasons why he was looking to fight there too, just knowing he doesn't have a 4th base on the way up, knowing that he's playing a bit of a slower game here, basically. And that he needs to try and maybe take Stats down a bit before this game gets too out of control. Stats will try 4th base, but with this drop on the right side, I imagine that's a cancel. There's nothing nearby just yet. You either go for the Nexus, or you can perhaps go for the probes. He should have gone for the pylon right away. He will get the majority. Okay, this is actually really good, because he gets he cancels the Zealots, but the High Templar finish warping in, so that's 3 kills. Stats on the 4th base as well, though. He gets 5 SCVs. This Nexus will end up going down. You should just be able to kite for it, no issue there. Lifts and gets out. Stats forcing the 4th base liftoff is annoying, and now Zealots back into the 3rd. Just going to leave a few of them there. Keep the other few for a few moments from now. And Stats is the one closer to max now. Both players finished 2-2, pretty close to each other, so no real fights happening, where one player is really high up on upgrades and the other one is lacking behind. This orbital is actually just very low. If the orbital goes down, remember that was not a 4th base, that was his main relocated, so it's not just losing the 4th base, it's actually losing your orbital, which was able to mule, able to scan. Even if it was in the main base, there'd still be a bit of mining, gas mining, and now you lose all of that. The Disruptor shot here, oh, gets cancelled. SpeCial kills off in time. The next 2 connect, but they weren't as juicy as what the first one was lined up to be. SpeCial moving across to the top side. Stats still around the top as well. A few more Stalkers continue to come into play. Medevacs will load up, and the bio units already flying out to the left-hand side, looking for a drop into the natural expansion. It's looking to get very dangerous there. A couple of extra observers still in production. 2 more Marauders, 4 more Marines coming out. Oh, what a series this has been so far. Really great games between SpeCial and Stats, and a 3rd map now, which is going the distance, going long. Stats maxed out, though. Definitely looks good, but SpeCial, can he drop his way around this? Forces the recall. That takes away one of the defensive tools for the Protoss for future moves in the next minute and a half or so. Unfortunately, he did lose 1 medevac to the Stalkers that came in the end. He's going to try and drop back in here. You lose the medevac. That's 10 supply that he ain't getting back. At least these Marauders get out with the Marines and will do some damage. That's the bio coming up. Good EMPs across the board. It's just there's so many disruptors. How do you ever commit to fighting? You don't, right? Because if you commit to a fight, you're just going to be splitting forever. You're never going to stop splitting. You're never going to actually get a chance to just sit and deal damage. So while this army of Stats is pretty fragile, SpeCial, the way you fight this is almost letting stats come too far forward, and once he comes too far forward, then you can maybe stim in and start sniping disruptors off the back of like a set of EMPs like that. They obviously go down very quickly, but he just doesn't have enough bio here to really turn around and do that, especially not with the Immortal still mixed in there. You know, a couple of these are going to shred the Marauders, which is a lot of what this army is, and a lot of what you need to take the disruptors down quickly too, so it makes sense. I think SpeCial is just bleeding out. This consistent harassment on the third base has just been ridiculous. 43 SCVs went down this game. I mean, Stats lost 18 probes, but remember 18 of those were all in that kind of first trio of attacks. So yeah, I mean, he's just lost like 8 SCVs at a time, 4 to 5 times over. And that's been probably SpeCial's biggest issue, because the lack of continued mining on the third base and the lack of just a strong, dedicated economy has really just stopped him from remaxing off the back of a couple fights which maybe weren't so great recently, but could have worked out a bit better. Again, maybe if you have small units, if you weren't going back to deal with zealots all the time. I mean, there's a lot of ifs and buts. He does drop back into the natural, but he just lost the fourth base again, the replacement that he just gotten set up. He is going for the snipe on the natural though, and he will get that. I'm not sure how important that really will be. We missed an EMP over here, but nothing too substantial. The Zealots once again in the third. I mean, there's no SCVs left on the third now, so might not see another attack of Zealots here for a few moments, as this one will get fully cleaned out. Stalkers take the opportunity to come and find a medevac, and just great army movement from Stats. Knows where SpeCial is and isn't focusing, knows when he can get his Stalkers forward to make use of them. You know, grab an extra unit that he might not have done had he just kind of been moving around with the whole army. Playing this nicely as, well, Stats did lose the Forge, and he rebuilds double Forge, but those disruptors at A disgust and B upgrades might not matter, because 2-2's already just kind of the dedicated setup here for SpeCial, and you can just see that this entire army is getting crushed by disruptors. And then obviously the Immortals still here, the Stalkers too. It's going to be too much. The SpeCial will type out GG, but take Stats to a long game here. And just an excellent series across the board. Game 1, 2, and 3, just absolutely fantastic. The entire series was just spectacular. What a TVP. Wow. I was not expecting the first series to be so good, guys, actually. I casted this thinking like, oh yeah, maybe one of the series will be, you know, a good upload on YouTube. And wow, this first one absolutely was. Alright, well, if you are watching this on the YouTube upload, obviously thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next upload. Every day we upload a new video. So subscribe to get the notifications when we put the upload out. And of course, don't forget to like the video and maybe comment down below to help us push the content out to others. Stats does close this out 2-1. GG's and well played.